Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Dr. Omékongo Dibinga. And Dr. Michelle Obama talks, people listen. She didn't mince words when she was talking about the sitting president, really just saying flat out, he's a racist. Take a listen.
Let's be honest. Right now, our country is in chaos because of a president who isn't up to the job. And if we want to regain any kind of stability, we've got to ensure that every eligible voter is informed and engaged in this election, because the stakes are on display every day, not just in the headlines, but in our families. If you're a parent like me, you're feeling the consequences of this president's failure to take this pandemic seriously, from his constant downplaying of the importance of masks and social distancing, to his relentless pressure on schools to open without offering a clear plan or meaningful support to keep students and teachers safe.
So my question to you is, I keep hearing from Democratic strategists that they're worried about the enthusiasm among black voters. Given everything that has happened in the last 3.5 years, why is that still the case?
Well, I believe, unfortunately, that there are still too many black people who feel like this politics thing isn't for them. I feel like the Democratic Party, quite honestly, can do a better job, similar to what they did with Obama during when he was running. They need to get more younger celebrity types involved. To be quite honest, there were rappers and singers making songs before and everything, but I don't feel like they've done a really good job of engaging. If you listen to people like Charlemagne on The Breakfast Club, people are saying the Democrats can't just take us for granted. So there is an outreach problem. It's unfortunate that so many of them can't see what Michelle Obama is saying about Trump's racist policies, about him not giving a damn about our community. But at the end of the day, people have to really get out there and see how their life is going to change significantly, because we may not even recognize this country if he gets elected again.
So unpack that for me, because yes, I hear exactly the same thing you're saying, which is that the Democrats aren't being specific. But let's be realistic, neither are the Republicans. So given the choice between the Democrats and the Republicans and someone who you know does not like you, why is this such a big deal? And are Democrats making, and specifically blacks, making more out of this than it deserves? I mean, after all, politics is the art of the dodge. You know, I've known a lot of politicians, Republican and Democrat. I have a conversation with them. I walk out of the room and I go, what did that person just say? What do we really expect from a Democratic presidential candidate?
I think you make a great point. And I think that what needs to happen is that, particularly with a lot of younger voters, a lot of black voters, they may feel like Trump is a racist and all of that, but they feel like they think that their community is not changing at all.
Wait a minute. I want to unpack that. They may feel that Trump is a racist, but at the end of that sentence, how is it possible that they may feel that Trump is a racist, but? How do we get to that point?
Some default to the fact that, well, all presidents have been racist at some point. Look at what Bill Clinton did with the crime bill. Look at, people will default to those types of things. So people will default to that and not realize that the scale, the level of what Trump is doing from top to bottom is hurting the black community at every single level. So I think people get caught up in that whataboutism that doesn't allow them to really focus on what this president is actually doing. And that is why it is so problematic. We have to really analyze and talk about what he's doing and how it has, from voting to women's rights to schooling and access to healthcare, which he's trying to take away. We have to really drill those points down so people can really understand. And don't get me wrong, I do not understand why people don't understand at this point. But some people still feel like they need to be sold, and the Democrats still have to sell that message, which is why Michelle Obama did the video.
So she does the video. Some people still aren't sold. If you're Joe Biden, are you looking at the black public and saying, I can't, I got nothing?
I think some of that has already happened to a degree. I mean, you see he's spending so much time in places, where these working class, the Scranton type places of the world where working class whites are, or working poor whites are to try to get their vote. I kind of feel like he has a little bit of a mentality that since we got Kamala Harris, there's a certain part of the black community vote that we already got in the bag. I do feel like there hasn't been as much effort as relates to getting to the youth and different populations. And I'm not saying it's taking the black vote for granted. I'm saying that in terms of black people who don't vote or are undecided, there hasn't been a strong enough push to bring them in like was done with the Obama coalition of years past.
So let's talk about white voters before we go to commercial break and the undecideds. There are the so-called Trump voters out there. Explain to me, if I'm a Republican, how somebody can still be undecided on either side of the aisle.
I think for a lot of Republicans right now, and those who are undecided or moving towards Trump, the number one thing I hear is, I like his economic policies. Yeah, he can be a little brash and so on and so forth, but I like his economic policies. What that translates into, what he's doing is working for me. The markets are working for me because they're in a certain level of wealth, right, that they may be experiencing financially. However, I will say, President Lyndon B. Johnson said that, I learned at a young age that if you can convince the poorest white person that he's better than the best colored man, he won't realize you're picking his pocket. Give him someone to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you. There are a lot of poor white people who identify with this man in an aspirational way, even though they have nothing to do with him. And so at the end of the day, what we're seeing is that whiteness and the preservation of whiteness is still playing out, despite the fact that there are more white people in these food lines than black people, despite the fact that white people are losing their jobs and losing their livelihoods to COVID as well. Many of them will still stick with him because of this aspiration of somehow that he's representing them.
Dr. Dibinga, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about COVID and the Veep stakes. Stay with us.